Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jen Frost. I am the manager of broadband programs and compliance at the Office of Broadband Development. I'm going to go ahead and start us off on our presentation. You may see that our executive director, Ree Mackey, has joined us. Unfortunately, she's ill and has lost her voice, so will not be doing the presentation today. But I think we will go ahead and get started. Thanks, Hannah. We just wanted to start off with a kind of the 2025 year in review. Of course, BEAD feels like that's all I've done all year is BEAD. We started the year accepting applications, trying to make decisions in the first quarter, to have the second quarter kind of change directions and start from scratch. We've submitted our final proposal in September, and then through the basically third and fourth quarter, we've been curing that final proposal. And spoiler alert, we still do not have a decision. We do not have approval, but we do expect it very soon. We also created a position to streamline the NEPA processes and collaborate with other state agencies and help our broadband projects move in a more streamlined fashion, basically through the environmental NEPA SHPO review. And Megan Mesrell, she'll be presenting a little bit on that topic in our presentation today. And then we did run a fourth round of line extension, and that will cover a little bit too, and we'll maybe tease out some awards later in the presentation. And then, of course, much more. Not everything was moving forward. Next slide, Anna. Unfortunately, we did see that that our digital equity or digital opportunities program was pulled. It was pulled across the country. It wasn't just the state of Minnesota. This was a plan that the state worked really hard to put together, and it was the state's plan. We didn't hire a consultant to do it. Staff worked on the plan, visited many communities, worked with teams that offered feedback to this plan. So it was very disappointing to see that really the rug pulled out from under us there. We do hope that there'll be some additional funding sources we can pull in to try and revive that program and really do some of the great things that Minnesotans identified that we could do to help adoption and digital skills in the state of Minnesota. So as you can see, this is a kind of a highlight of the programs that we have right now. We've got the BEAD, which is a federal program, and then we've got our state programs. And the border to border and low density population have typically been funded with both state and federal dollars. Line extension has been funded also by federal dollars, the capital projects funds. And moving forward, we hope to fund that with state dollars as well. Next slide. So just a recap of the BEAD final proposal timeline. We did submit it on September 4th. That was a result of kind of the reconfiguration of the program on June 6th. NTIA released restructuring guidance. So we started over. There's a timeline there of what we did to comply with all the steps we needed to in that reboot. We submitted our final proposal on September 4th, as of Monday. We have had 18 rounds of curing, and we do expect we are very close, and that we will have at least that NTIA notification of final proposal by the end of this year. We're hoping. No guarantees. Next slide. A recap of where we are on the cost. We have a allocation. Somebody's alarm is going off. We had an allocation of 652 million, and then we have BEAD project requests at this point of 381 million, and you can see the breakdown there. The match provided 187 million. The average cost, locations, highs and lows, and then where the percentages are that will go. It is a mix of fiber, of LEO or low Earth orbiting satellite, and fixed wireless service options. Next slide. And then breaking that down, again, we did produce, this has been asked for quite a bit, BEAD awards by county. It is in our final proposal. It's a CSV file. It's a little bit cumbersome to review. So we put this out today. Again, these are preliminary. These are not final, but you can go ahead now and see the locations by provider, the service type, and county. And that's available on our website where it's located. But you can see that we've got 700 or 74,739 locations across 80 counties. But the high county is St. Louis County, if you're wondering. The low is Lac-qui-Parle County, kind of a fun fact. We did have BEAD locations that NTIA determined were too excessive to serve. And we only had one applicant for those areas. We did reach back out to do some negotiating. Nobody was interested at that time. And so we have 158 locations from one county that are deemed too excessive to serve. We can talk a little bit about what that means, but just that's the state of our final proposal right now. And again, you can see the breakdown. It's pretty closely mirrors the breakdown of the funding types of locations served by fiber, the low Earth orbiting satellite, and the fixed wireless. Next slide. After the final proposal approval, so what comes next? And we are having sub-grantees reach out, we're having communities reach out. What happens next with BEAD? You've seen that several states are getting their approval. We expect we're going to be soon, and we are trying to get aligned and ready for the next steps. This looks like it's going to be about a 6-month process. This is from NTIA, and they have steps that need to be done. And so what we'll be doing is this list. We're going to be notified by NTIA that we are approved. Then we're going to get final approval from NIST, which is more on the financial and budget side. And then we'll have this letter notice of award amendment, which will be the terms and conditions we have to follow in running the program. And the state will need to sign and return that amendment. And that really gets our clock going. So right now we're trying to ensure that we are reviewing all the NTIA resources and guidelines. We're trying to push those out to our BEAD website as a sub-awardee facing site so that our subrecipients can start reviewing those documents as well. And then we're getting the sub-grantee agreements for the subgrantees drafts finalized. NTIA, we do have a draft agreement. NTIA has added new terms and conditions. They've revised the general terms and conditions, and we won't get those until we're approved by NIST. That is our understanding. So there's going to be a little bit of a lag between getting approval and then getting those terms and conditions in our agreement and push back out to the website. There's going to be NEPA and permitting activities. If applicable, we need to submit any tribal resolutions of consent. Those are due within 6 months of that NOA amendment. And then subgrantees need to be compliant overall in their applications, but letters of credits or performance bonds. We're going to be finalizing subgrantee monitoring plans and how the progress reports will work. And then subgrantees will need to sign their BEAD agreement and any certifications that are required as part of that. Next slide. And so this is really from the subgrantee perspective, same thing, but here's what's coming up. We do want subgrantees to be reviewing the NTIA resources and guidelines that they're putting out. And there's some things that all subgrantees are going to have to do. One of those is updating their budget and schedules, and this will conform with the BEAD reporting requirements. This is to streamline the process and avoid duplicative entry by subgrantees and additional work by us. It will be a step that all current preliminary awardees, should they become final awardees, will need to do. Upload their NEPA geospatial data and NEPA questionnaire. In some cases, we have the geospatial data just where it needs to be, but the NEPA questionnaire is new. Again, and that's a requirement of the process. And then because some providers applied over a year ago, we have to do the pre-contracting risk assessment again that's required. We'll also be asking for a bill of materials, which is more related to the BABA compliance. So it could have been a separate bullet, but there'll be some steps that all providers need to do in the grant portal. And then, of course, we can begin the NEPA and permitting activities, and then they'll be signing the agreement. And some of these things are going to be happening simultaneously. One doesn't need to have the other to happen. And we will be consulting with grantees on all the steps and exactly what's required for their projects. As necessary and if applicable, there's another list here, finalizing the network design if necessary, certifying cybersecurity plans, supply chain risk management, certifying compliance with BABA, submitting their final letter of credit or performance bond, and again, the tribal consent. So we can go ahead and move to the next slide. And then this is really Megan. So sorry, Megan, I didn't have a great segue for you. Here's Megan, everyone.
Yeah, as Jen mentioned earlier, my name is Megan Messerol, and I'm the Broadband Environmental and Land Use Coordinator for the Office of Broadband. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of information about NEPA for BEAD and what's coming up. As Jen mentioned too, we're still waiting on some general terms and conditions that NTIA will be releasing once we get our final approval from NIST. So we don't have everything finalized yet because we're waiting on those, but I did want to bring your awareness to some other resources that are on our website and some things that are coming soon. So if you go to our website, there is a little section there that's dedicated to BEAD environmental permitting resources. This first header is more of the Minnesota focused environmental documents that we have out for you. And then below that is the NTIA resources that are available that you can take a look at. There are 2 resources right now that are out from Minnesota that you can take a look at, while we're waiting for our final proposal. The Minnesota Broadband and Railroad Rights of Way Guidance Document, and then the Environmental Historic Preservation Requirements. And that was a part of our final proposal requirements. But if you're curious to learn a little bit more about how Minnesota is going to approach environmental and historic compliance, check that out. That's a good one. But then coming soon, we're going to create a document that is sort of a general for the sub-grantees or for the grantees on how NEPA will work, responsibilities in the process, as well as a environmental and historic preservation questionnaire and instructions for that questionnaire. So those are coming soon. And that questionnaire will be required for the grantees to complete. And the questionnaire is really based on the NTIA's environmental screening and permitting tracking tool, or the ESAP tool that they've been mentioning. We don't really have any other additional requirements in that questionnaire. It's really just pulling those questions out for the grantee to be able to fill out for us so that we can more quickly go through and upload those answers to the ESAP tool once we have access. Next slide, please. But too, if you're wondering what kinds of things you can start working on while we're in this waiting period of final proposal and contracting, is to take a look at the geospatial data for your project. We're going to ask grantees to take another look at them. Some grantees definitely are going to need to update their geospatial data, and some may not have as much to update. But if you're a grantee who applied for a large number of locations and then through this process, those locations have been whittled down, then you could update your geospatial data to reflect the preliminarily awarded locations. Also, if you're a grantee that uploaded a KML or a KMZ file, we are going to ask that you go back and create a geodatabase with feature classes or a shapefile or a couple of those other geospatial options that you see listed there. Also, double check your geospatial data, make sure you're mapping it as accurately as you can and including as many ground disturbing activities as you possibly can in those maps. That would include borrow locations, if you have brush management or access roads that you need to get to different locations, please include those. And this will really help, or having an accurate map will really help the environmental and NEPA process go more smoothly so that we can just be sure that we're checking all the right locations. Another thing that you could start working on too is identify somebody within your organization who will be the point of contact for permitting, environmental compliance, and historic preservation. Somebody that our office then can work with when we have questions or need clarification on this particular point. Next slide, please. Once our office has the final maps and the questionnaire, that's when I will go ahead, I'll do the initial screening for your project area, in particular focusing on the National Historic Preservation Act, historic properties that might be in your project area, also looking at endangered species potential in your project area and critical habitat. And if any consultation were to come up for your project area, our office would handle that consultation. And then the grantee, you guys would be responsible for hiring any additional specialists, NEPA specialists, archaeological specialists, consultants, if there are additional concerns in the project area. And then once we've done that initial desktop review, we will be setting up a grantee kickoff meeting where we can walk through the maps together, talk about potential avoidance, maybe just by crossing across the other side of the road, talking about maybe some best management practices we could implement to help avoid some different adverse effects. And just giving you a heads up too for any red flags of, hey, just a heads up, this area might have an issue. So let's get working together on this right away. And then our office will be responsible for handling that ESAP tool, that NTIA ESAP tool. So I will be the one, I'll help upload that questionnaire questions and answers into that tool. And then from there, we'll be able to select the categorical exclusions that would apply to your project, if applicable. And then within that tool, it allows us to forward the determination to NTIA for review. And then that's how we will obtain our final NEPA decision document. And then from there, we will be able to send that along to the grantee. And next slide, please. I think I pass it off back to Jen now.
Thanks, Megan. Again, this is just a recap of our programs, really, and where we are today, and this feeds into the line, excuse me, the line extension discussion. So just want to note that we've been a very active office for many years, done a lot of good work and brought broadband to a lot of folks, and we want to continue to do that regardless of the program, if it's state or federal. But just to highlight here, the Border to Border program, 10 rounds since 2014. You can see the dollars, the local match, and the location served. Low density, this was a newer program since 2023, 76 million, and the 6,400 locations served. And as of November 2025, the grant team is actively really focused on closing out rounds 7 and 8 and really getting ready for BEAD. But you can see these rounds 7 through 10 were awarded 141 projects. 68 are still active and 36 are pending closeout. So there's really been a lot of activity for the grants team and going forward. And if we could move to the next slide, Anna. Here's a map of the line extension program. We've had 3 rounds of line extension. Each color represents a different round. I believe it's not the greatest map, but you can see where the coverage is across the state. So that program has made an impact across the state as well. Could you go to the next slide? More details on the line extension program, and this is all available on our website under the line extension program. I think it's been in some annual reports as well. Line extension is a little bit different than our border to border, where we approve. It's a reverse auction program, first of all, so there's maybe some back and forth in negotiation and what we initially award and what is ultimately contracted. So as you look and say, well, what was put out and what was eventually completed, it might be slightly different, but you can see the round 1, 2, and 3 stats there. And then next slide, please, Anna. And then we get to round 4. And round 4, we do expect announcements to come soon. We are currently evaluating and expect to award over 1,000 locations across approximately 30 counties. Again, we expect this to happen soon. We open the round at the end of September. Rounds closed right before Thanksgiving, and we hope to get those awardees announcements out yet this month. We have a process where folks can sign up. You go out to the webpage and you can sign up your address for those locations if you're eligible. You currently can't have a wired connection of at least 120 to be eligible. So you want to go ahead and sign up there. And then we intend to award this round 4. That will be with capital projects funds. When we went back, if you think back to the slide where we did the overview of all those projects closing out, anytime there's money that has unspent from the grant, we're able to roll that out. And in this case, use it for line extension. Again, so we're able to really be efficient and use as much of those dollars as we can to get as much broadband as we can to Minnesota. So we are hoping that we're even going to be able to award more than the initial 3.5 million we thought we would have when we announced the program back in September. And then we do, same kind of rationale, we do expect to use state funds that have revolved back for a 5th round opening in winter and running into spring. So that's upcoming as well. And then can you go to the next slide? Finally, just an FYI announcement, get it on your calendar. We're doing another Connecting One Minnesota 2026 Broadband Summit. It's going to have some different kind of focus areas that people, different tracks, should say, that people are going to be able to attend. Registration info is coming soon. It will be shared via OBD's email blast. And the date is Wednesday, April 29th, and it will be held in the Heritage Center again in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. And last slide, I think. Like question time. Yay, we made it.